AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house temporarily despite her insisting it's just for a week. I, 28F, live in a 3-bedroom apartment in the city, which I've rented for the last 4 years. It's my safe space, my home where I feel in control, and honestly, I take a lot of pride in keeping it comfortable and private. I have a roommate, Alex, 27M, who's been living with me for about 2 years. We share the rent and utilities equally, and we have a pretty clear understanding of boundaries. Private spaces, guests, and general household responsibilities are all things we've agreed on early on. My younger sister, Emma, 25F, has been in a relationship with her fiancé, Mike, 30M, for 3 years. They're planning a wedding later this year, and things have been pretty intense lately with her planning and Mike working long hours. Over the past few months, Emma has had a habit of asking me for small favors, which I usually accommodate. Babysitting her dog, picking up her dry cleaning, letting her crash on my couch when her apartment was being fumigated, that sort of thing. I never really minded because it was temporary and I genuinely like helping her. A few days ago, Emma called me and sounded a little stressed. She told me that Mike's apartment had some urgent plumbing issues that were going to take a week to fix. She asked if he could stay at my place during that week. She assured me it would only be a week and that he would be super quiet and wouldn't impose on my routine. Emma added that she'd make sure to bring him groceries and take care of his meals. She also mentioned that he could sleep on the pull-out couch in the living room. At first, I hesitated. I value my personal space a lot, and I'm not comfortable with strangers, even family members, staying in my home for extended periods. But I didn't want to upset Emma either. So I asked her some logistical questions. When would he arrive? What time would he leave each day? Would he be around late at night? And what about my roommate? I also told her that I'd need Alex's opinion before making a decision. Emma seemed annoyed but said it was fine, that Alex would love having someone new around. I then asked Alex, and he was immediately uncomfortable with the idea. He explained that he doesn't like unexpected guests, and having someone living in the apartment for a week would disrupt his work-from-home schedule and general peace. I agreed with him, so I called Emma back and explained that I couldn't have Mike stay at my place. I emphasized that it wasn't personal against Mike, but I have boundaries and he would be a guest for a whole week, which is beyond what I'm comfortable with. Emma completely lost it. She started yelling over the phone, accusing me of being selfish, unsupportive, and not valuing family. She kept repeating that it's just for a week, and it's not like he's asking to move in forever. She even said that if I really loved her, I'd make an exception. I tried to stay calm and reiterated my reasons. My apartment is my personal space, Alex and I live there, and it would be unfair to impose on us. She hung up on me. Later that evening, she sent me multiple texts, guilt-tripping me by saying she's stressed out with wedding planning and Mike would be so grateful. She also hinted that I was being dramatic for refusing a simple favor. I didn't respond to most of the messages, but I sent a polite text again saying no, hoping to de-escalate. She didn't take it well and told our mom, who then called me. Mom said I should be more understanding and let Mike stay for a week, especially since he's family by extension. I tried explaining my side, but Mom kept emphasizing that family helps each other, that I was being rigid, and that I might regret refusing. I'm now feeling really guilty. I do want to help my sister, but I also feel strongly about maintaining my boundaries and respecting Alex's comfort in our shared space. I thought a week wouldn't be too long, but now I'm second-guessing myself. I don't want to damage my relationship with my sister or have her think I'm unwilling to support her, but at the same time, I feel like bending on this would set a precedent where she might assume I can always make exceptions for her, regardless of how inconvenient it is. Since then, Emma has barely spoken to me, and our family is subtly pressuring me, asking why I'm being so difficult. Alex and I have agreed that our position is firm, but the tension with my sister is making me question whether I'm overreacting. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my apartment for a week. Character count, 6,396. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious. When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to babysit my brother's kids after he called me last minute. And now the whole family is mad at me? So a bit of context. I, 28F, have always had a really busy schedule, mostly due to my job. I work in marketing, and while it's a 9 to 5, my workload tends to spike unpredictably, especially around project deadlines. I also have a pretty active social life and hobbies I commit to on weekends. My younger brother, Alex, 25M, has 2 kids, ages 3 and 5, and has always been someone who leans heavily on family when he needs help. My parents live about an hour away and have helped out a lot over the years, but they're getting older, and Alex tends to call me as the next best option. Last weekend, I had plans to spend Saturday doing errands and catching up on work. Around 9 a.m., my phone rings. It's Alex. He starts panicking immediately and tells me that his babysitter canceled last minute because she got sick. He explains that he and his wife have a work emergency they cannot miss, and they have nowhere else to turn. He says the kids have an event at 11 a.m., and he really needs me to watch them. I explained to him that I literally just woke up, have errands to run, and work piling up that I cannot postpone. He insisted, saying it would only be for a few hours and that I'm the only person who can handle this. Here's where things got sticky. I've always had a rule that I don't do last-minute babysitting unless it's a true emergency, because it puts me in a really stressful position. I calmly told him no. I suggested he check with our parents, or maybe a neighbor he knows, but he kept saying they were unavailable or unreliable. He then started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I can't believe you won't help your own brother, and the kids will be disappointed." At this point, I was frustrated but still firm. I said no again, that I would be happy to help if he planned ahead, but last-minute requests are too disruptive for me. He hung up and immediately texted my parents, saying I refused to help. Later that day, my parents called me, asking why I wouldn't step up for family. I tried to explain that my schedule doesn't allow me to be on standby like that, and that it's not personal. They were upset, insisting that family comes first, especially when children are involved. I felt attacked because I wasn't being unreasonable. I just wasn't available. The next day, Alex sent me a long message detailing how disappointed he was. He said the kids cried and were sad, and that my refusal ruined their morning. He implied that I was selfish and didn't care about family obligations. I didn't respond because I didn't want to escalate things. Then came the group chat from my extended family. Apparently, my refusal became the main topic of discussion. Everyone was weighing in, with some saying I should have just rearranged things, and others siding with me about boundaries. My parents are still frustrated, and Alex's wife sent me a somewhat passive-aggressive text saying, "I guess you don't love your nieces and nephews as much as we thought." Here's my perspective. I've helped Alex with the kids plenty of times when I've been asked in advance. I've driven them to school, watched them for a weekend, and even planned full days with them during holidays. But I have limits. I can't drop everything at the last minute, especially when it conflicts with my responsibilities and prior commitments. I also feel like being guilt-tripped isn't fair. I understand emergencies happen, but this wasn't a sudden health crisis or accident. It was a babysitter canceling, which happens fairly often. There were other adults available, and he had options he refused to explore. Despite explaining this calmly, I feel like my family has painted me as the villain. I've been labeled selfish and uncaring toward my nieces and nephews, which hurts because I love them dearly. I don't want to be the mean aunt who never helps, but I also need to protect my own time and mental health. So AITA here, should I have just dropped everything to help my brother at the last minute, even though I had obligations and it would have been stressful for me? Or was I justified in setting a boundary? I want to maintain a good relationship with my family, but I also feel like being guilt-tripped and shamed for having limits is unfair. I'm trying to figure out if I handled this poorly or if my family is overreacting. I just want a clear answer and maybe some advice on how to handle situations like this in the future without feeling like the bad guy. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée plan my wedding despite being family. So I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Ryan, 30M, for about 4 years. We got engaged last year and immediately started talking about what kind of wedding we wanted. Ryan and I are fairly traditional, but also laid back in some ways. We want a wedding that's fun, meaningful, and reflective of our personalities, but we both agreed early on that we want to be involved in all the planning ourselves. Here's where the drama starts. My younger brother, Luke, 25M, has been with his fiancée, Melissa, 27F, for 3 years. She is an extremely controlling person and loves to take charge of events. She's also a social media influencer, which means she's constantly posting about life goals and perfect aesthetics. Last Christmas, she casually mentioned to me that she could totally plan my wedding for me and make it look amazing for social media. I politely thanked her, but said I'd rather handle things ourselves. She laughed it off and didn't push further. Fast forward to this past summer, my parents decided to host a family reunion at their lake house. Melissa somehow found out about our engagement. Everyone in the family knows now. And during a casual conversation in front of my parents, she said, "I can't wait to help plan the wedding. I have so many ideas already. You just tell me your theme, and I'll take care of everything." I was taken aback because I had not asked for her input beyond normal polite conversation. I told her again that we want to plan the wedding ourselves, and that while we appreciate her enthusiasm, we would prefer her to simply attend and celebrate with us. She smiled but didn't look happy. Over the next few months, she began dropping hints and making suggestions in subtle ways. She would send me Pinterest links of wedding themes, comment on my Instagram posts with, "This would look amazing at your wedding," and even tag my fiancé in messages with ideas. I started noticing that every time I mentioned anything wedding-related, she would try to improve it or assert her opinion. For example, when I mentioned wanting a small, intimate ceremony, she immediately sent me a list of extravagant venues in the city, saying, "You can't have a small wedding. People will be disappointed." Ryan and I ignored these comments and tried to focus on our planning, but it became increasingly stressful. The tipping point came last month when my parents invited Melissa and Luke over to discuss wedding logistics. They assumed she was helping us plan. I'm still not sure why. During the meeting, she brought a full binder of ideas, including floor plans, floral arrangements, and even suggested changing our wedding date to accommodate her schedule with a brand collaboration she had. I felt blindsided and told her firmly that this wedding is ours, not hers, and we appreciate her enthusiasm, but we are not accepting outside help in planning. She looked visibly annoyed, but didn't say anything at the moment. Luke, who has usually been very supportive of my decisions, said, "Maybe you should just let her help. She's good at organizing stuff." I was shocked. I told him that this isn't about being organized, it's about boundaries. He shrugged, saying he just didn't want her to be upset. I could feel my blood boiling. After that meeting, Melissa stopped talking to me for a week. Then she sent me a long email detailing why she thinks she should be involved. She wrote that family weddings are a team effort, and that it would be disrespectful to exclude her since she is marrying into the family. I didn't respond because I didn't want to engage in a conflict, but I forwarded it to Ryan. We both agreed to write a polite but firm email reiterating that our wedding planning is private and that we expect her to respect our decisions. Things escalated again last weekend at my parents' house. Melissa cornered me in the kitchen and said, "I don't understand why you're being so stubborn. Weddings are my specialty. I just want to help make it perfect." I told her calmly but firmly that it is already perfect to us, and we do not need her help. She got very defensive and said, "You're being ridiculous. I'm family now. This isn't just about you." I told her that being family does not give anyone the right to control our personal life or our wedding planning. She rolled her eyes and stormed out, saying she wouldn't attend the wedding if she can't have a say. Luke called me later and asked if I overreacted because Melissa is upset. He said he feels like I'm being too harsh. I told him that this isn't about harshness, it's about setting boundaries. I even reminded him that he has been very happy with the boundaries Ryan and I have in our own lives, so I don't understand why he suddenly thinks this is different. He said he just wants peace in the family. I told him peace doesn't come from allowing someone to overstep and control us. Now my parents are worried that this conflict is ruining family dynamics, And Melissa is telling friends and extended family that I'm being mean and selfish for not letting her plan the wedding. I'm starting to feel like I'm being painted as the villain for standing up for myself. I know she's excited and wants to contribute, but I feel like her involvement is completely inappropriate and invasive. Ryan supports me fully, and most of my friends agree that I am justified in keeping our planning private. However, Luke, my parents, and some extended family members are upset with me for being too rigid. I'm worried that this tension might spill into the actual wedding, and I'm not sure how to handle it without creating more drama. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée plan my wedding, even though she is family and insists it's for the good of everyone. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though it would save her money. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a decent job, a modest house in the suburbs, and I take pride in keeping my life organized and under control. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has always been more spontaneous and free-spirited, which is usually charming, but sometimes it leads to chaos. Recently, it became a source of tension between us. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago. Her fiancé, Jason, 30M, has a good job, but she has been stressing about the costs of their wedding. She initially wanted a big, traditional wedding at a venue, but as the expenses started adding up, she began asking about alternative options. That's when she brought up my house. My house is not huge, but it's comfortable. I have a decent backyard and a medium-sized living room. I've hosted parties before, but nothing on the scale of a wedding. When Emily first asked, I was caught off guard. She said, "It would save us so much money, and you have the perfect space." I told her I needed to think about it, which she didn't seem to understand. She started hinting constantly about how generous it would be for me to offer my home. I started listing out the practical concerns. My house isn't designed for 100-plus guests. Parking is limited, my kitchen can't handle catering for that many people, and I don't have enough bathrooms for a crowd. I also value my privacy and my routines. Hosting a wedding would turn my home upside down for days. I tried to explain this calmly, but Emily got defensive. Over the next few weeks, she kept bringing it up in increasingly emotional ways. She said she felt hurt that I wasn't supporting her dream and accused me of being selfish. I tried to explain that I support her, but hosting a full-scale wedding at my house would be unrealistic and stressful for me. She responded by saying that she'd even help with cleaning and setup, and that I could just relax and enjoy it. The final straw came when she started sending me Pinterest boards of backyard wedding ideas that included elaborate lighting, a tent, a dance floor, and a DIY buffet setup. She assumed I would automatically agree if she presented it as a fun DIY project. At that point, I realized she wasn't hearing any of my concerns. She was just framing the situation as me being unwilling to help. I finally told her no, firmly but politely. I offered alternatives like helping her find a more affordable venue, assisting with the guest list, or helping her coordinate a smaller, intimate ceremony at my house, but not the full wedding. Emily was furious. She yelled that I was ruining her wedding and that I didn't care about her happiness. She even said that our parents would be disappointed in me for not helping her. I tried to reason with her, pointing out that my refusal wasn't about money. It was about logistics and boundaries. I offered to help in other ways. I could help plan, decorate, and even host a small rehearsal dinner. But she wouldn't accept any compromise. She stopped talking to me for 2 weeks and has only spoken to me sporadically since. Our parents are in the middle. They think I should just let her do it at my house, but also understand my concerns. I'm starting to feel guilty because part of me wonders if I really am being selfish. I do love my sister, and I want her to have a happy wedding. But I also know that agreeing to host it would likely cause me stress, exhaustion, and resentment. I've always been someone who respects boundaries, both mine and others, and I feel like this is a situation where I have a right to say no. My friends say I'm not the asshole because it's my house and my choice, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I'm letting her down at a crucial moment in her life. I also worry about the long-term damage to our relationship if she continues to view me as selfish or unsupportive. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though it would save her money? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house, even though he's homeless? So, this is going to be a long one, and I'll try to give all the context. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I live in a decent apartment in the city, have a steady job as a project manager, and generally try to plan ahead. My younger sister, Lily, 28F, on the other hand, has had a more chaotic life. She's talented and smart, but has never been great with money or long-term planning. She's moved between apartments, jobs, and even cities more than I can count. I have always been the one she calls when she's in trouble, and I'm usually happy to help. But lately, things have started to feel different, and I'm questioning whether I'm overstepping by setting boundaries. Here's what happened. Lily recently got engaged to someone named Mark, 30M. I had met him a few times at family gatherings, and he seemed nice enough, but I didn't know him deeply. Lily was ecstatic about him, and I was genuinely happy for her. However, over the last few months, she's been dropping hints that Mark has been struggling financially and doesn't have a stable place to live. At first, I didn't think much of it. Many people struggle with housing at some point, but then she told me he was effectively homeless. According to her, he's been couch surfing between friends and family and sleeping in temporary arrangements. Lily said that she wanted him to move in with her eventually, but she wanted to see if I could help him temporarily, just until they found a place together. I was caught off guard. I love my sister, but I do not have the capacity to host someone long-term, especially a man I barely know. I explained that my apartment is small, and I have roommates and a strict lease agreement that doesn't allow extra long-term guests. I also have work obligations that require me to maintain a quiet space, and honestly, I wasn't comfortable inviting a near stranger into my personal life for an indefinite period. I told Lily I was willing to help in other ways, like connecting Mark with local shelters, food resources, or temporary rental assistance programs. I even offered to help him find affordable short-term housing, but I drew a line at having him stay in my apartment. Lily didn't take it well. She argued that I was being cold and unsisterly because he has nowhere else to go. She reminded me of all the times I had helped her in the past when she was struggling, implying that I owed her this much. She said it would only be for a couple of weeks, but I explained that I don't trust that kind of situation to remain temporary. From experience, a few weeks can turn to months, and I didn't want to risk my mental health or disrupt my living arrangements. I tried to stay calm and reasoning, but she ended up crying and hanging up on me. The next day, I got several texts from family members, mostly my parents, asking why I was refusing to help. Some were sympathetic to me, but cautious. Others seemed annoyed that I was being unhelpful. My mom said she thought I should just let him stay until he got back on his feet because it's what family does, and she couldn't understand why I would refuse. I tried explaining again that I have limitations and that there are other ways to support him without compromising my space and boundaries, but I could tell they weren't hearing me. The situation escalated when Lily started posting about it on social media, painting me as the selfish sister who won't help my future brother-in-law. Friends I had from childhood started messaging me, asking why I wouldn't help, and some mutual friends of Lily and Mark reached out saying that I was cold and needed to step up. It became stressful to the point where I considered locking down my social media because I couldn't handle the commentary. I did try to compromise. I suggested that I could pay for a few nights at a cheap hotel, help with groceries, or even offer rides to job, interviews, or appointments. Lily dismissed these options, saying he would feel unwelcome and that it wouldn't be the same as letting him stay under my roof. I even researched programs in the city that offer emergency housing, temporary apartments, or short-term roommate arrangements, and sent her links to all of them, hoping she would accept that as a solution. She reacted negatively to that too, saying that I was just making excuses and that a few weeks wouldn't hurt me. To be clear, my discomfort isn't about money. I have a budget that allows me to help financially if needed, but the idea of sharing my home with someone I barely know and having it possibly turn into a months-long arrangement made me anxious. I also have a cat, and Mark apparently has allergies, so there would be potential complications there too. I try to be honest and clear about all of this, but it feels like my concerns aren't being validated at all. Last week, Lily went to my parents' house and told them she was planning to bring Mark there temporarily. My parents said they didn't have the space, so she asked me again. I told her firmly that it wasn't happening. She got very upset and accused me of choosing comfort over family, and said she was reconsidering whether she even wanted a relationship with me if I couldn't step up. It hurt a lot because I have always been there for her. I also worry that this situation is going to create a permanent rift because the rest of the family is now framing me as the villain. Since then, Mark apparently found a temporary spot at a friend's place, but Lily has barely spoken to me and hasn't invited me to help plan their wedding. I feel torn because I love my sister and want to help, but I also feel like I have a right to maintain my personal space and boundaries, especially with someone I don't know well. I've been reflecting on whether I was unreasonable or if I could have handled it better, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like expecting me to host a near stranger in my apartment was unfair. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my apartment, even though he's homeless? Or should I have just opened my door and risked months of disruption and stress for the sake of family? AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids during my vacation, even though she insists it's family duty. So, some background. I, 32M, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who is married with 2 kids, ages 4 and 6. I have always been close to her, but as adults our relationship has become a bit strained due to different lifestyles. I enjoy traveling and taking occasional solo trips to recharge, whereas Emily is very family-oriented and believes in constant togetherness. A few weeks ago, I planned a week-long solo trip to Italy. I had been saving for this trip for over a year and had meticulously planned the itinerary, including flights, hotels, and even some cooking classes because I love Italian cuisine. I mentioned my plans casually to Emily when we last spoke, and she seemed excited for me. I figured everything was fine. 2 weeks before my trip, Emily called me in a panic. She said her husband had an unexpected work commitment and wouldn't be able to watch the kids for a few days. She then asked me if I could come over and take care of them during that period. I reminded her of my upcoming trip and said it was not possible for me to cancel or reschedule. Emily responded that she understood, but then she dropped the bomb. She was upset because I never prioritized family and implied that it was my duty to step in since I had no kids and could easily babysit. I tried to explain that I have responsibilities too, like work, my own finances, and personal plans, and that while I love her and the kids, my trip had been booked and paid for months in advance. I also mentioned that watching 2 young kids is not a small favor, especially for a week, and it's something that requires full-time attention. Emily didn't take it well and started guilt-tripping me. She said things like, family comes first, and you'll regret putting yourself before your family someday. She even suggested that if I didn't help, she'd have to ask other relatives who were less willing and that it would make her feel unsupported. The conversation got heated. I stayed firm, saying that my plans are important too and that constantly putting others' needs above my own is not healthy. She accused me of being selfish and immature, and she refused to speak to me for several days. During that time, she posted on social media about family members who only think of themselves, tagging me indirectly in a way that made our mutual friends take sides. I didn't respond publicly because I didn't want to escalate things, but I was hurt because I felt like I was being punished for setting a boundary. When I returned from my trip, Emily met me coldly and barely spoke. Our parents, who I usually get along with, tried to mediate. They acknowledged that it was a difficult situation for Emily, but also said that I had the right to prioritize my own plans. However, they suggested that maybe I could have at least offered partial help, like a day or two, or help find a babysitter. I explained that even a day or two would have required me to cancel parts of my trip, which wasn't feasible, and that helping find a babysitter would have been feasible, but Emily didn't want that. She insisted on someone she knew. Since then, Emily has been distant, and some mutual friends have asked me why I didn't help family in need. My parents tried to remind me that boundaries are important, but I still feel conflicted. On one hand, I know she was stressed and needed help. On the other hand, I feel like her expectations were unfair and that I shouldn't have to sacrifice my carefully planned personal time just because she didn't arrange her childcare earlier. I have always tried to be supportive of my family, attending birthdays, helping out when I can, and visiting regularly. I feel like this situation is different because it wasn't a small favor or a one-off event. It was asking me to give up something that I had invested a lot of time, money, and planning into. I also feel like Emily doesn't fully understand that setting. Boundaries does not mean I don't care about her or her kids. Some friends have told me I'm not wrong because it's my trip and I'm allowed to prioritize myself. Others argue that family obligations should come first and that refusing makes me look callous. I honestly feel torn because I don't want to ruin my relationship with Emily, but I also don't want to feel guilty for taking a trip I've worked hard for. So, AITA for refusing to babysit my sister's kids during my vacation, even though she insists it's my family duty. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of her demands. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Laura, 34F. Growing up, she was the quintessential overachiever. I admired her, but it was hard to feel like I could ever measure up. Our parents always praised her accomplishments, while I quietly worked on building my own path, often in ways that went unnoticed. Despite our differences, I always tried to maintain a cordial relationship, especially as adults. About 6 months ago, Laura announced she was getting married. Initially, I was genuinely happy for her, but that quickly turned into unease when she mentioned that she and her fiancé, Tyler, had decided on a destination wedding in Italy. Destination weddings aren't unusual, but she laid out very specific requirements for her guests. She expected everyone to arrive at least 3 days early for a pre-wedding retreat, participate in mandatory group excursions, and even attend a rehearsal dinner that involved performing some choreographed dance she had been obsessively planning for months. At first, I tried to brush it off as typical wedding planning craziness. But then she sent me a 10-page itinerary via email detailing every activity, from morning yoga sessions to afternoon wine tastings, and how each guest was expected to dress and participate. There were even instructions about how we should all greet her and Tyler upon arrival, down to the tone of voice we should use. My anxiety spiked immediately. I have never enjoyed highly structured group events, and the idea of being micromanaged for an entire week in a foreign country made me feel suffocated. I also have a fairly demanding job, and arranging time off and covering expenses for a trip like this would be extremely difficult. I explained all this to Laura in a calm message, telling her I was thrilled for her and wanted to celebrate, but I wasn't comfortable committing to such an intense schedule and a destination wedding on such short notice. Her response was a mixture of shock and passive aggression. She accused me of not caring about her happiness and implied that I was being selfish and dramatic. She said that if I truly loved her, I would make the sacrifices required to attend and that my absence would be noticed and judged by the rest of the family. She even mentioned that Tyler's family might feel offended if I didn't show up. I tried negotiating by suggesting I could attend only the wedding ceremony and reception, but not the pre-wedding retreat or excursions. Laura flatly refused, saying that it wouldn't be proper for guests to cherry-pick parts of the celebration. She also added that because I was opting out of some activities, I shouldn't expect any special accommodations for the main events, including seating or photos. This made me feel like attending partially would not only be uncomfortable, but also humiliating. After a week of agonizing over it, I decided to decline the invitation entirely. I sent a polite, heartfelt message expressing that I loved her and wanted the best for her marriage, but that I couldn't justify the financial, logistical, and emotional strain of attending the wedding under her terms. I also offered to celebrate with her privately either before or after the wedding, perhaps with a dinner when she returned from Italy. The fallout was immediate and intense. Our parents called me repeatedly, trying to convince me that I was making a huge mistake and that Laura was hurt. Some cousins chimed in on social media, expressing disappointment that I wasn't attending. Laura stopped speaking to me entirely, and when I tried to reach out to clarify that my decision wasn't about her, but about my own limits, she accused me of not valuing family and not being a real sister. I've had friends tell me I did the right thing by setting boundaries, but the guilt is hard to shake. Our parents keep hinting that family relationships could be permanently damaged. I also worry that Laura may never forgive me and that I've painted myself as the villain in a story I never wanted to be part of. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but I genuinely felt trapped between attending a wedding that felt more like a forced vacation with strict rules and maintaining my own well-being. My hesitation isn't about her or Tyler personally. It's about the way the entire celebration was structured, which left no room for individual comfort or flexibility. Since declining, I've tried to maintain contact in other ways, sending small congratulatory gifts and messages, but she hasn't responded. The tension has spread to extended family, with subtle comments and awkward gatherings. It feels like every interaction now comes with an unspoken judgment. I keep second-guessing myself. Was I truly being selfish, or was I right to prioritize my own boundaries and mental health? I've never missed a major family event before, but this situation feels different. I want to maintain a relationship with Laura, but I don't know how to navigate this without feeling like I'm compromising my own well-being. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding because of her excessive demands and rigid planning. Character count, 6,243. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade of family drama. I, 34F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, particularly my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, Emma and I were close for the first few years, but as soon as she hit her teens, things started to deteriorate. She became manipulative and attention-seeking, and my parents often indulged her behavior while dismissing mine. I try to brush it off as typical sibling rivalry, but over time, the favoritism became glaring. The first major conflict happened when Emma was about 14. She wanted the family dog, Max, and I had been taking care of him for years. When I said no, citing that I was responsible for him and that it wasn't fair to make me give him up, my parents forced me to give him to her. I was heartbroken, but my objections were dismissed as me being selfish. That incident marked the beginning of a long pattern of me being expected to bend to Emma's demands, while her behavior was always excused. High school was no better. Emma would constantly manipulate situations to make me look bad. She'd spread rumors, blame me for things I didn't do, and charm our parents into thinking I was overreacting. I tried confronting my parents multiple times, but they always told me I should just get along with my sister or stop being so sensitive. By the time I graduated, I had developed a thick skin, but also a strong sense of resentment. College offered some respite, as I moved away and didn't have to deal with her daily. However, during holidays, the tension would flare up again. Emma had a habit of monopolizing family events, making them all about her. One Thanksgiving, she insisted that the family go on a surprise trip that she had planned without telling anyone. When I expressed frustration that my schedule had already been arranged and that I couldn't just drop everything, she cried and accused me of never supporting her. My parents, once again, backed her, leaving me feeling alienated. After college, I moved to a different city and started building my own life. I have a career I love and a small circle of friends I consider my family. Over the years, I kept in touch with my parents, but my relationship with Emma remained strained. She would occasionally text or call, but it always ended with her making some subtle dig or passive-aggressive comment. I tried addressing it once as an adult, calmly explaining how her behavior affected me, but she laughed it off and said I was being dramatic. Fast forward to last year, Emma got engaged. When she first announced it, I tried to be genuinely happy for her. I sent her a congratulatory message and even offered to help with wedding planning in small ways. Initially, she seemed receptive, but soon the old patterns emerged. She began demanding constant attention, asking me to do tasks at the last minute, and criticizing me for not being more involved in planning. The tipping point came when she sent me a list of wedding duties, some of which were incredibly time-consuming and expensive. She expected me to attend multiple pre-wedding events, help with decorations, and even cover part of the honeymoon costs for her and her fiancé. When I expressed that I could help in limited ways but couldn't take on everything, she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive and suggested I didn't care about her happiness. I tried reasoning with her, but she refused to compromise, and my parents backed her, saying, "Emma's wedding is her special day. You should do whatever she asks to make it perfect." I realized that attending the wedding under these conditions would likely result in me being stressed, financially strained, and emotionally drained. I also recognized that this pattern of my needs being ignored while hers took precedence was exactly what had caused our relationship problems for years. I made the difficult decision to decline the invitation. When I told my parents, they were shocked and upset. They accused me of being immature and letting old grudges ruin family unity. Emma, predictably, was furious. She sent me a long message detailing how my absence would be a personal betrayal and how she didn't understand how I could prioritize my own feelings over her happiness. My response was polite but firm. I explained that my relationship with her had been toxic for years and that attending her wedding under the current dynamics would only exacerbate the tension. I reiterated that I wanted a relationship with her, but it couldn't be at the cost of my mental health. Since then, my parents have largely stopped speaking to me directly, and Emma has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, implying that I am cold and heartless. Some extended family members have also reached out to ask why I am not attending, and I've been giving them the same explanation. The family dynamics are too toxic for me to be comfortable at the wedding. I've offered to meet Emma privately before or after the wedding to celebrate in a smaller, more controlled way, but she refuses to accept that and insists that the only acceptable way to show support is by being physically present at the wedding. Friends and coworkers have been divided on this. Some say I'm completely justified in prioritizing my mental health and setting boundaries, especially given the history of manipulation and favoritism. Others argue that weddings are one of the few times families come together, and refusing to attend is extreme and unforgivable. Honestly, I feel guilty sometimes, especially when I think about how hurt my parents and other family members are. But I also know that attending would mean putting myself in a situation where my sister's controlling behavior would dominate the experience, and I'd leave feeling resentful and upset. I'm torn between wanting to maintain some semblance of family connection and protecting myself from a decade of unresolved issues. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding, given the long-standing history of manipulation, favoritism, and my parents' lack of support. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of the way my family treats me. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my extended family. My parents divorced when I was young, and while I was primarily raised by my mom, I stayed in close contact with my dad and his side of the family. My dad remarried when I was 15, and his wife, Diane, has always had a strained relationship with me. She treats me like I'm too sensitive or dramatic, and every family gathering feels like a minefield. I have a cousin, Megan, 26F, who is my dad's brother's daughter. We were really close growing up, but as adults, our relationship has been tense because of family politics. Megan got engaged last year, and the wedding is coming up in a few months. From the start, I felt uneasy about attending because of the family dynamics, but I try to keep an open mind. Last month, my dad called me to formally invite me. During the call, he mentioned that Diane had asked if I was really going to come because apparently I always ruined family photos with my attitude. That comment really hurt me because it's been years since I've had any real conflict with anyone, and I don't see myself as someone who causes problems. I brought this up with my dad, and he said that Diane was joking and that I should just brush it off. I felt dismissed, but I decided to wait before making a decision. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a pattern. Diane has been making passive-aggressive posts about family loyalty and true family connections on social media, and my cousin Megan commented on some of them in ways that seemed to exclude me. For instance, Megan posted a picture of her bridal shower and wrote about how grateful she was for family who truly support me, and I wasn't mentioned. It might seem small, but it felt like a subtle way of telling me I wasn't welcome. I tried reaching out to Megan directly, saying I was excited about her wedding and wanted to know if she wanted to do something together before the big day. Megan replied politely but lukewarmly and never followed up. It became clear to me that my presence wasn't really wanted. Then came the final straw. A family group chat that includes my dad, Diane, Megan, and several aunts and uncles started planning seating arrangements. Diane posted a draft and wrote, "We're trying to make sure everyone feels comfortable. I left a few people in spaces where they can stay out of trouble." The phrasing was directed at me. I know it. My dad tried to convince me it was harmless, but it felt humiliating. I started to feel anxious and stressed just thinking about attending the wedding. After much thought, I decided not to go. I wrote a detailed message to my dad explaining why. I said I loved my cousin and wanted her to have a great day, but that the way the family has treated me, especially Diane, makes it impossible for me to enjoy myself without feeling insulted or ostracized. I said that I would send a gift and a heartfelt card, but I couldn't participate in an event where I felt unwelcome. My dad's reaction was immediate and intense. He said I was being dramatic, selfish, and that I was letting Diane win. He told me that Megan would be hurt, that family is supposed to put aside differences for special occasions, and that by not attending, I was choosing to isolate myself. He also accused me of holding grudges for minor slights and said I needed to grow up. I tried to explain my perspective again, emphasizing the repeated patterns of subtle exclusion and hostility. I pointed out the social media posts, the seating comment, and Diane's general attitude, but he brushed it off. He said he understood I had feelings, but that feelings shouldn't dictate actions in situations like this. After that, I stopped responding. I didn't want to escalate things further, and I felt drained emotionally. I sent Megan a card and a gift separately, explaining that I wished her all the happiness in the world and that I hoped her wedding would be everything she wanted. I also mentioned that I hoped we could reconnect after the wedding in a more positive environment. Megan thanked me, but didn't offer any invitation to meet beforehand. Now, my dad and some other family members are upset with me. They've been sending texts and leaving voicemails saying that I'm making a huge mistake and that I'll regret it. Diane hasn't contacted me directly, which feels intentional. My aunts and uncles are split. Some think I'm overreacting, others understand my perspective. I feel guilty for disappointing my dad and cousin, but I also feel like I would have gone into the wedding feeling tense, anxious, and resentful. My best friend says I made the right choice for my mental health, but my cousin's fiance's parents heard from someone that I'm not attending, and now they think I'm rude or disrespectful. I didn't anticipate this level of judgment, and I'm worried that my decision might permanently damage my relationship with my dad's side of the family. I keep going back and forth in my mind. Part of me feels like I should tough it out for my cousin's big day, but another part of me thinks that attending under these conditions would be emotionally harmful and could lead to a blow-up that ruins the wedding for everyone. I genuinely don't want to hurt Megan, but I also feel like I have to set boundaries for myself. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of the way my family treats me. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after years of her putting me down. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, smart, outgoing, and effortlessly popular, while I struggled to fit in. Our parents often compared us, usually to my detriment, and Emily never hesitated to remind me of my shortcomings. It wasn't outright cruelty most of the time, but it was enough to leave me feeling invisible and inadequate. Despite that, I've always tried to maintain a semblance of sisterly relationship because I didn't want to completely burn bridges. Emily is now engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 33M, and their wedding is scheduled for next summer. When she announced it, I tried to be genuinely happy for her. However, it quickly became clear that she expected me to shoulder a lot of responsibility for her big day. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which I reluctantly agreed to, mostly because I didn't want to seem unsupportive. That's when things started to get out of hand. First, Emily asked me to organize the bridal shower. I suggested a few venues and ideas, but she dismissed them all, insisting she had a specific vision. Then she asked me to handle all the catering arrangements. When I tried to set up meetings with potential caterers, she criticized every choice, saying I clearly didn't understand how a wedding works. When I expressed that I was stressed and needed her input, she told me that this was exactly why she didn't trust me with important decisions and implied that I wasn't capable of planning anything successfully. Over the next few months, I ended up doing hours of research, making calls, and setting up meetings, only for her to reject almost every option. On top of that, Emily started assigning me other tasks. She wanted me to make her wedding dress alterations appointments, manage her RSVPs, and even plan the bachelorette party. Every suggestion I made was either criticized or ignored. When I tried to set boundaries, she accused me of not being supportive enough and threatened to remove me from the wedding party entirely if I didn't comply. I felt trapped, like saying no would make me the villain in front of my family, but doing everything she demanded left me feeling resentful and unappreciated. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. Emily asked me to book a hotel block for out-of-town guests, which I agreed to do. I spent an entire weekend researching options, comparing rates, and contacting multiple hotels. I presented her with a list of 3 hotels that were reasonably priced and had good reviews. Instead of thanking me, she started criticizing everything. One hotel was too far from the venue, another didn't have the amenities I wanted, and the third wasn't charming enough. I suggested we go look at them together, but she refused, saying I clearly didn't understand her vision and that she'd just do it herself. I felt completely devalued after all the work I put in. At that point, I decided I couldn't continue being her unpaid wedding coordinator. I told her I would help in small, reasonable ways, like attending dress fittings or helping with decorations if asked, but I was not going to take on major tasks anymore. Emily was furious. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and even said I was jealous because her wedding was exciting and my life is more mundane. She cried, shouted, and sent me multiple texts calling me every name in the book. I stayed firm, explaining that I felt used and disrespected, but she said I was overreacting and making everything about me. The fallout has been rough. My parents are upset because they think I should just suck it up for the sake of family. Friends are divided. Some say Emily is manipulative and I have every right to set boundaries, while others think I'm being unreasonable and should just support my sister during her big life event. Emily has barely spoken to me since our argument, and I've been avoiding any family gatherings where the topic might come up. I genuinely want to have a relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to be treated like a personal assistant who can never do anything right. I've spent the last few weeks second-guessing myself. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe weddings are stressful and she just needed more help. But then I remember years of subtle put-downs, constant criticism, and the feeling that my efforts are never enough. I've tried to tell myself that this is different, that it's about her happiness, but I can't ignore that she's consistently disregarded my feelings and effort. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to take on major wedding responsibilities for my sister after years of her putting me down and devaluing my efforts. I want to support her in some ways, but I feel like the amount of work and the lack of appreciation has crossed the line. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she insists it's the perfect venue. I, 32F, have lived in the same house for almost 6 years. It's a modest 2-story home in a quiet suburb. I put a lot of work into it, both physically and emotionally, and I genuinely enjoy having a calm, organized environment. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, on the other hand, is the type of person who thrives on chaos and drama, which is part of why we don't always see eye to eye. She is getting married in 6 months, and the planning process has been tense, to say the least. Emily recently called me out of the blue, extremely excited, claiming she had the perfect idea for the wedding. She wants to have the ceremony and reception at my house. She said she loves the way my backyard looks, that it's quaint but elegant, and that it would be intimate and personal for a big day. She emphasized that I could just help set up a few tables, chairs, and flowers, and that it would save her a ton of money. She kept saying I would be doing this for my sister, and how meaningful it would be. I told her no multiple times. I explained that my house is my sanctuary, and hosting a wedding for 80 to 100 people is not something I can comfortably do. I don't have the space, I don't have the parking situation, and I am not willing to deal with the potential damages or stress. I also pointed out that I have work obligations, a very tight schedule, and a delicate relationship with my neighbors, who would not appreciate a full-day event with loud music and lots of strangers. Emily didn't take my refusal well. She started crying over the phone, claiming I'm being selfish and unsupportive. She even hinted that I don't care about her happiness and that I'm letting her down as a sister. I tried to reason with her, explaining that I absolutely want her wedding to be beautiful, but my house is not the right place. I offered to help in other ways, like assisting with vendor contacts, helping plan decorations, or even helping with setup at a different venue, but she said nothing else would feel right. The tension escalated when she posted on social media about the perfect backyard wedding idea and tagged me. My friends and family started asking if I was honoring the request, which made me uncomfortable because it's not something I want to do. I didn't respond publicly. I simply ignored it. A few days later, Emily showed up at my door unannounced. She had brought flowers, samples of tablecloths, and even a blueprint of how she imagined my backyard could look with a wedding tent. She said she wanted me to walk through the setup with her. I politely told her again that it was not going to happen, that I could not host a wedding at my home. She then became visibly upset, said she didn't understand why I was being so rigid, and accused me of ruining her wedding before it even started. The confrontation left me feeling guilty, but also angry. I love my sister, and I want her to have an amazing wedding, but her insistence on using my house feels like a violation of my boundaries. I try to be accommodating by helping in ways that don't involve hosting, but she refuses to accept that. I have since started locking my door when I leave to avoid surprise visits and have limited communication with her texts, only responding to planning questions that don't involve my home. Some family members have started taking Emily's side. They say I should make sacrifices for family, and that refusing my house is overreacting. My parents have urged me to reconsider, but I feel like giving in would set a precedent that my home and personal space are negotiable, which I'm not comfortable with. I'm beginning to dread family events because I know Emily is going to talk about this with relatives, framing me as the unhelpful, unloving sister. I worry that even if I refuse calmly, my relationship with her could be permanently strained. I feel trapped between wanting to protect my personal boundaries and wanting to support my sister's happiness. I haven't spoken to her since the last confrontation at the door, and I'm worried she may go behind my back and try to pressure others to convince me. I'm emotionally exhausted and unsure how to proceed. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding. Despite her insistence that it's the perfect place and her framing me as selfish for saying no, the story is long and complicated, but I want to do what's fair to both of us without sacrificing my own comfort and security. I want to support her, but I don't want to feel forced into something I can't handle. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade of family tension. I, 32F, have had a complicated relationship with my family for as long as I can remember, but things came to a head recently with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, Emily and I were never particularly close. She was the golden child, always excelling in school, sports, and everything our parents seemed to value, while I was the quiet, introverted one who liked reading and writing. My parents constantly compared us, sometimes subtly, sometimes not, and while I tried to shrug it off, it hurt. As adults, I moved to another city for work and built a life largely independent from my family. Emily stayed local, got engaged last year, and started planning a wedding that has turned into a massive, high-stakes affair. Here's where the problems began. From the start, my sister's fiancé, Mark, seemed nice enough, but he and Emily have extremely traditional ideas about family roles and expectations. They were very clear they wanted all family present and participating fully in every aspect of the wedding, including pre-wedding events, bridal parties, and even certain rituals that I was uncomfortable with. For example, there was a week-long bridal experience at a resort that they insisted all close family attend, involving spa days, dance rehearsals, and elaborate photo shoots. I politely declined, citing work commitments and my limited budget, but my declining was met with guilt trips, especially from Emily, who said I was letting the family down and not supporting her big day. Then came the guest list fiasco. I have a boyfriend, Alex, 34M, and we've been together for 4 years. Emily had initially said I could bring him, but after a discussion about seating arrangements and the size of the wedding, she told me only family could attend certain ceremonies, which meant Alex wouldn't be invited. I tried to compromise, suggesting that he attend a reception or a part of the weekend, but I was told no exceptions could be made. I felt hurt, but tried to stay diplomatic. Tensions escalated when my parents got involved. They've always favored Emily, so when I expressed frustration about being excluded from parts of the wedding, they told me I was being dramatic and needed to put family first. They also guilted me over finances, as Emily had asked if I could contribute to her bachelorette week, which I found absurd given that I was paying for travel to attend even part of the wedding. When I refused, my parents told me I was not being supportive and that I was letting Emily down during the most important time of her life. Things really came to a head at Christmas when the extended family gathered. Emily and Mark gave a slideshow of their engagement and wedding plans, showcasing the lavish resort, the designer dresses, and the detailed itinerary. I was quietly sitting with Alex when one of my aunts loudly commented, "I guess some people just can't make sacrifices for their family." The remark stung, and Emily chimed in with, "I thought you'd be more excited about being part of this, but I guess it's all too much work for you." I snapped. I told her that I loved her, but I could not participate in something that felt like a performance judged by her and the family. I explained that the selective inclusion and constant pressure made me feel excluded rather than involved. She cried and called me selfish in front of everyone. After that, I decided not to attend the wedding at all. I sent Emily a long message explaining my reasons, emphasizing that my decision wasn't about not loving her, but about preserving my mental health and refusing to be guilt-tripped into something I could not enjoy. My parents were furious, calling me heartless and accusing me of ruining family unity. Other relatives started weighing in on social media, some telling me I was immature, others quietly supporting me. Since then, Emily has not spoken to me. Mark has also blocked me on social media, and my parents have stopped inviting me to family gatherings. I've been feeling conflicted because part of me misses the family connection, but another part feels vindicated that I didn't compromise my boundaries just to appease them. I worry that this decision may permanently damage my relationship with my family, especially with my parents who have always been emotionally manipulative. I've been trying to reach a middle ground by sending gifts and personal letters to Emily, but she hasn't responded. I understand weddings are emotional and people get hurt, but I also feel that my boundaries are reasonable given the pressure and selective inclusion I experienced. Some friends tell me I overreacted, while others think my family is unreasonable. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of feeling excluded and pressured by my family? I know the story is long, but the situation is really complicated and emotionally exhausting, and I want to know if my choice to prioritize my mental health over a family expectation makes me the bad guy here. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding because I don't agree with her choices? So, I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up in a pretty traditional family, and for the most part, we've supported each other through everything. Emily recently got engaged to a man named Marcus. At first, I was happy for her, but as things progressed, I started noticing red flags about Marcus that really worried me. Marcus is charming on the surface, but he has a tendency to be controlling. For example, when Emily told him she wanted to have her own career and possibly move to a different city for a promotion, he pressured her to stay in their hometown. He also has a habit of making decisions for her and then framing them as if they're joint decisions. I tried gently talking to Emily about my concerns, but she brushed them off, saying I was being overly dramatic and didn't understand their relationship. Fast forward a few months, and Emily started planning the wedding. She asked me to be heavily involved, as I was her maid of honor. I initially agreed, thinking it would be fun, but then things started to feel off. Marcus had very strong opinions about everything. The venue, the guest list, the decorations, the theme, even down to the font used on the invitations. Emily seemed to just go along with everything to avoid conflict. When I tried suggesting alternatives or offering help with decisions, Marcus would cut me off or insist that Emily didn't need anyone's input because he already knew what she wanted. The real breaking point came when Marcus decided he wanted to limit the wedding guest list drastically. Emily has a large family, and naturally, many people were expecting to be invited. Marcus wanted only a handful of close friends and immediate family. Emily seemed hesitant but didn't speak up. I tried to mediate, suggesting compromises, but Marcus dismissed me, saying, "This is our day, not anyone else's, and Emily agrees with me." I could see Emily's discomfort, but she didn't say anything. Things escalated when Marcus demanded that I handle all the wedding invitations and RSVPs. He wanted me to contact everyone, keep track of the responses, and deal with any complaints, all while he and Emily focused on their perfect vision. I explained that while I wanted to help, I wasn't comfortable being the middleman for what seemed like a controlling situation. Emily got defensive, accusing me of not supporting her. I told her I would support her in general, but not in a way that felt like I was condoning behavior I found concerning. Marcus reacted angrily when he found out I wasn't going to manage the invitations. He told Emily that if I wasn't fully on board, she shouldn't even bother including me in the wedding party. Emily was torn, but she eventually sided with Marcus, saying she didn't want drama leading up to her wedding. I felt hurt, but I still tried to maintain a relationship with her without getting involved in the wedding. The situation worsened when Emily asked me to help with some of the financial contributions. She hinted that Marcus didn't want to spend too much of their money and that they were counting on family members to cover certain expenses. I refused. I told her I wasn't comfortable funding a wedding that seemed like it was primarily about Marcus' control and image, not celebrating Emily. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, saying, "If you loved me, you'd help make my day special." I explained that love also means being honest when something seems wrong, and that blindly supporting her wedding under these conditions felt wrong to me. Marcus then went further, contacting other family members and painting me as the problem sibling who was trying to ruin Emily's happiness. Some of our relatives started pressuring me to back down and participate fully. I stood my ground, but it created tension at family gatherings. Emily seems to resent me now, although she hasn't explicitly said so. Recently, the wedding has become a full-blown source of stress. Emily has asked me again to help with last-minute planning and to manage the guest list disputes. I firmly told her no. She reacted with anger, claiming I'm choosing Marcus over my own sister and that I'm being dramatic. I feel like I'm just trying to maintain boundaries and protect her from making decisions that could hurt her in the long run. But I also feel isolated and unfairly judged. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding because I don't agree with her choices and her fiancé's controlling behavior. I want to be clear. I love my sister and I want her to be happy. But every time I try to get involved, it feels like I'm being asked to enable behavior I find toxic. I also don't want to financially or emotionally invest in a wedding that seems more about Marcus' ego than Emily's happiness. I'm trying to strike a balance between supporting her as a sister and protecting my own boundaries. But it seems like my attempts at honesty are being framed as hostility. I haven't completely cut her out of my life, but interactions are awkward and tense. I dread family events now because of the wedding drama, and I can't help but wonder if I'm doing the wrong thing by stepping back entirely. At the same time, I feel like saying yes to all of this would compromise my values and sanity. I'm looking for perspective. Am I being unreasonable by refusing to be involved, or should I put aside my concerns and support her no matter what? I'm torn between wanting to be there for my sister and feeling like I'd be enabling a controlling partner. This situation has really tested our relationship, and I'm struggling to reconcile my desire to support her with my need to maintain boundaries. It feels like a lose-lose. Either I help and feel complicit, or I step back and risk losing my sister's trust entirely. I just don't know if I'm wrong for choosing the latter. AITA for refusing to host my extended family every holiday after years of feeling taken advantage of. I, 32F, have always been close to my family, or at least I thought I was. I come from a family that values traditions very strongly, and that often translates into what I now realize is a lot of pressure. Every year, my extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and sometimes friends of cousins used to gather for every major holiday. Growing up, we rotated homes, but after my grandparents passed away, it naturally fell on my parents. When my parents grew older and started struggling with health issues, I offered to host major family holidays at my apartment or house to ease their burden. I thought this would be a positive step, and I genuinely enjoy cooking and celebrating. What I didn't anticipate was how much it would escalate. I have a modest 3-bedroom house, not a mansion, and somehow over the years, it became the unspoken rule that my home is the official holiday hub. My siblings moved away, one lives in another state, and the other has a small apartment, so my house became the default. For several years, I hosted Thanksgiving, Christmas, and even occasional family birthdays. Initially, it was manageable and even fun, but then it turned into an expectation rather than a choice. The real tension started about 3 years ago. My aunt, who has always been somewhat critical of me, began sending me detailed suggestions on how to host and decorate. Not just suggestions, but directives like how the table should be set, which dishes must be included, and which seating arrangements were mandatory. My cousins also started showing up early to help, which often meant taking over and criticizing how I was doing things. I try to keep the peace, reminding myself that family gatherings are about being together, not perfection. A year ago, things really came to a head. I was exhausted from hosting back-to-back holidays and juggling work. I finally decided to draw a boundary. I told my family that I would be happy to host, but only if everyone helped with the planning, cooking, and cleaning. I thought this was reasonable. My siblings and parents seemed supportive, but my aunt lost it. She sent a group text blasting me, saying I was ruining family traditions and being selfish for not wanting to do everything myself. My cousins chimed in, saying they couldn't believe I would refuse to take charge as usual. I tried to explain that hosting doesn't have to be a one-person job, but it fell on deaf ears. After that, I started considering not hosting at all. I suggested rotating houses like we did when I was a child, or even having a potluck at a neutral location. My parents agreed and said they would help organize, but my aunt immediately insisted that it's not the same without you, implying that everyone else's homes were inadequate. I felt frustrated and unappreciated, so I told my family that I would not be hosting the next holiday and that they were free to make other arrangements. I expected some grumbling, but what I didn't expect was the full-scale backlash. The texts, calls, and messages started coming immediately. My aunt and some cousins accused me of abandoning the family and being petty. One cousin said I was trying to control everyone's happiness by withholding my home, which honestly made me laugh a little because I had been begging for help and boundaries for years. Another cousin, who lives across the country, guilt-tripped me saying my absence would ruin everyone's Christmas. My parents were caught in the middle, telling me to compromise, but also understanding that I was burnt out. On the day of the holiday, my aunt hosted at her house and, as expected, sent me multiple updates and photos with captions about how lovely everything was and how we missed you. I didn't respond because I didn't want to fuel the drama, but apparently that silence made things worse. A few days later, I got a phone call from my mother, who told me that some family members were calling her crying because they felt abandoned. I felt torn because I do love my family, but at the same time, I've been hosting for over a decade and never felt truly appreciated. Every year, it felt like my efforts were taken for granted, and the moment I step back, I'm portrayed as a villain. I tried to reach out to my aunt to explain my perspective calmly, but she refused to talk, insisting that I was making a huge mistake and that family traditions are more important than my feelings. My cousins have largely ignored me or continued to subtly guilt me on social media. My siblings support me privately, but they are hesitant to get involved because it would just escalate things. I've spent weeks reflecting on whether I overreacted, but I honestly feel that I was setting healthy boundaries that my family refused to respect. Hosting should be a shared responsibility, not a tool for emotional manipulation or control. At the same time, I can't ignore that my family genuinely values these gatherings, and my absence is causing them disappointment. I'm starting to wonder if I'm being selfish by refusing to host, or if my family is being unreasonable for expecting me to shoulder this responsibility indefinitely. So, AITA for refusing to host my extended family every holiday after years of feeling taken advantage of. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened at my own. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but our personalities clashed constantly. I'm more introverted and value quiet family time, while Emma has always been more extroverted and thrives in social settings. Our parents favored keeping the peace, which often meant ignoring our fights rather than addressing them. So resentment built up over time. Despite that, we had moments of sisterly bonding, and I truly wanted her to be happy when she started dating her now fiancé, Mark. Fast forward to last year, I got married. My wedding was a relatively small affair. I wanted a relaxed, intimate day with close friends and family. I told everyone in advance that I didn't want any big surprises or dramatics, and I emphasized that I wanted everyone to follow the schedule we agreed upon. The planning process was stressful but manageable until Emma got involved. Emma insisted on helping with planning. At first, I appreciated the offer, but it quickly became controlling. She made unilateral decisions about the decorations, flowers, and even my dress fittings. She pressured me into changing my original floral arrangements to something she deemed better for photos and argued with my florist over pricing. I started noticing a pattern. Emma didn't seem to care about my vision. She cared about what would make her look good or feel validated. I tried setting boundaries politely, but she would push back, claiming I was being too rigid and ungrateful. The real breaking point happened the day before the wedding. Emma insisted on reorganizing the seating chart, moving people I specifically wanted at my table, and then announced she had invited several distant relatives without asking me. I was exhausted and frustrated. I told her no, repeatedly, but she ignored me. That night, she even left a passive-aggressive voicemail implying that my wedding would be boring without her ideas. I broke down crying, and my fiancé had to step in to calm me down. I tried to reason with her one last time, but she said, "If you can't handle me, maybe you shouldn't have a wedding at all." On the day of the wedding, Emma went even further. She showed up in a dress that matched mine almost exactly, insisting it was coincidental. She interrupted the ceremony multiple times by loudly complimenting the officiant and giving speeches that weren't scheduled. She also argued with the photographer over where she should stand, making several shots unusable. Some of my guests later told me she had made snide comments about my weight and appearance. My wedding, which I had envisioned as a serene, joyful day, turned into a chaotic experience where I felt undermined at every turn. I didn't confront her publicly because I wanted to maintain some decorum, but the damage was done. Afterward, I decided to establish boundaries. I told Emma I needed space to recover from the wedding and that I couldn't trust her to respect important events. She reacted with anger, claiming I was overreacting and holding grudges. I ignored her messages for a while, focusing on healing and enjoying my marriage. My parents sided with me privately, but refused to take action publicly, arguing that family unity mattered more than personal grievances. Fast forward to now, Emma is getting married in 3 months, and she's been inviting everyone, including me, to her wedding. I received a long, emotional email from her explaining how I'm expected to attend as her sister and how much it would hurt her if I didn't. She reminded me of all the times I had celebrated her milestones and said it would be unforgivable to skip her wedding. I tried to explain my perspective calmly. I wrote back that I wanted to support her, but that given how she treated me at my wedding, I don't feel safe or comfortable attending. I also said I was willing to celebrate with her, privately before or after a big day if she wanted, but I cannot be a guest at the wedding itself. Her response was explosive. She accused me of being selfish, cruel, and holding on to petty resentment. She sent group messages to family members painting me as the villain for refusing to attend. Some family members have reached out to me privately, saying they understand my side, while others are pressuring me to forgive and move on for the sake of family harmony. I know skipping her wedding will upset her and some family members, but I also can't put myself in a situation where I'm guaranteed stress, humiliation, and possible public embarrassment. I've considered attending, but only if strict boundaries are enforced, such as separate tables, no speeches, and no interference in planning, but I know Emma would likely reject these conditions. I feel torn. I want to maintain some connection with my sister, but I also feel like attending would be emotionally damaging for me. I've been called cold and unsisterly, but I don't think I'm unreasonable for wanting to protect myself. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened to my own. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé take over my wedding planning. I, 29F, have always been very hands-on with the idea of my wedding. Ever since I was a teenager, I pictured how I wanted my day to be, what kind of dress I'd wear, the venue, even the color palette. When I got engaged last year to my fiancé, Mark, 31, I immediately started drafting ideas, Pinterest boards, and lists of potential vendors. Mark has always been supportive, but prefers to let me lead the planning because he knows how much it matters to me. Things were going smoothly until my younger sister, Lily, 26F, got engaged 6 months after me. Lily and I have always had a complicated relationship. We are close in some ways, but we've clashed on nearly everything else. She's very assertive and tends to push her ideas on people. She's also extremely confident that her taste is better than mine. When she got engaged, she immediately started asking about my wedding plans and kept hinting that I should let her help. At first, I thought she just wanted to be involved in a fun way, so I said yes to a few minor things like going with me to a dress fitting or giving opinions on table arrangements. Then things escalated. Lily began to insist on taking over larger aspects of my wedding planning, like the catering, the photographer, and even the seating chart. She argued that she has more experience because she's organized events for her friends before, and that my ideas were too plain or boring. Mark and I tried to set boundaries, but she would sidestep every attempt politely, only to push her own vision in the next conversation. She began making decisions behind my back and informing vendors that she was in charge of coordinating with the bride when she was not. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. My mother and I had chosen a local band that we loved and had already signed a contract. Lily called the band directly and told them she wanted to change the set list and add more songs that fit her vibe better. When the band informed me, I was furious. I called Lily, trying to keep my composure, and asked her why she thought it was okay to override my decisions. She told me that I was overreacting and that since weddings are about family too, she had the right to make things more enjoyable for everyone. I told her firmly that my wedding is my event, and while I appreciate input, I make the final decisions. She immediately stormed out and called my mother, Mark, and even my best friend to complain that I was being selfish and controlling. She said I was ruining my relationship with her and that I was treating her as if she didn't matter. My mom tried to mediate, suggesting a compromise where Lily could help with smaller details, like flower arrangements or favors. I agreed to this, hoping to ease the tension, but Lily refused to accept any limitation. She said if she couldn't be in full control, she didn't want help at all. After this, I blocked her from group chats related to the wedding and asked vendors to communicate only with me or Mark. I also made it clear to our families that the wedding is my and Mark's day, and no one else has authority to make decisions. This has led to an all-out war. My parents are upset because they want both sisters to be happy. Mark is frustrated because he doesn't want family drama overshadowing our day, and Lily has stopped talking to me entirely. She occasionally posts passive-aggressive messages on social media, implying that I am cruel or stubborn, which my friends notice and comment on. I understand that my sister wants to be involved, but I feel like she has completely disregarded my boundaries and is trying to control a day that is supposed to reflect me and Mark. I have even offered compromises multiple times, but she refuses any limitation on her authority. I also feel guilty because I don't want to hurt her or make her family dynamic worse, but I can't sacrifice my wedding to avoid conflict. Friends have been divided. Some say I'm right for standing my ground and protecting my day, while others say I should let my sister have more say to avoid long-term resentment. I've tried explaining to her that I value her as my sister, but my wedding is one day, and I want it to reflect our vision, not hers. I can't understand why she thinks she should have the final say on every decision, and I don't want to start a pattern where family members override my personal choices. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister take over my wedding planning and setting firm boundaries even though it has caused a rift. My intention is not to alienate her completely, but I don't want to compromise my wedding for someone else's idea of what it should be. I feel stuck because any attempt at compromise is met with rejection, and the tension is escalating rapidly. I just want my day to feel like mine and Mark's without it turning into a family showdown. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.